Thank you, Raghav. First of all, it's really a great thing to have this discussion. I think these kind of things are long overdue. So thank you, and thank you for having me on this platform. Let me first go ahead and introduce myself. I have been working in the IT industry for around 21 years now. I graduated from IIT Delhi in 2001 and then joined the software industry. And for the past decade or so, I've been primarily into product management of software products. Mainly worked on B2C internet domain products and launched several several B2C products on the way. And currently I am leading the product management vertical for one of the Indian startups in Gurgaon. So with that, let me also introduce the panelists. I will first of all like to welcome Apurv on the table. Apurv Gupta, he has been into software development for a decade now, and currently working as a senior front-end engineer with Amazon. Then Apurv, if you could switch on your video, we would all like to see your face.
Sure, Tushar, I hope you can see me. Thank you, everyone.
So welcome to the discussion.
Thanks, Tushar.
Let me also introduce Kaushik. Kaushik Ghosh. He has more than 12 years of experience in product development. He's worked with industries like banking and travel. He has a wide experience of different technologies, Python, data handling, AI, ML, and also worked on cloud platforms. Kaushik has, I think Kaushik has a lot of passion in, driving around and getting to know places. He's been into 17 states. Currently, you're based out of Bangalore, right, Kaushik?
Yeah, hi.
Right. Great. So welcome to the table, Kaushik. Looking forward to having a really nice discussion with you.
Sure, Tushar.
We also have with us Rajshekhar Palarta. Raj has a lot of experience. He has 16+ years of experience in entirely, the entire data engineering and data science kind of domain. He has been working with AI ML technologies for a very long time, and currently he's working with some of the Indian e-commerce companies like Snapdeal and Myntra. So welcome, Raj.
Thank you, Tushar.
Thank you. And last but not the least, we have Ashutosh Gupta with us. Ashutosh has also worked in the e-commerce industry for many years now, and currently also working with a leading e-commerce company in India. So welcome all. Welcome to the audience as well. We look forward to a really entertaining as well as knowledge gathering 2 hours of discussion. Right. So the topic today we have chosen as data security. Now, what really is data security? How do we go about handling the different challenges that currently we are facing in the industry? These are some of the things. What are the solutions that exist for us? What are the solutions that we can look for or hope for? These are some of the questions that we will try to answer today.
Okay, we can go.
Right. So let me first pose this question to all of you, any one of you, Apurv, Raj, Kaushik, Ashutosh. If we can start with just talking about what really is data security and privacy. When we say information security, what we really mean, why has it become so important when I started my development journey, there was no no Facebook, no Google. I mean, Google was there, but yeah, I mean, it was really a very different scenario. And suddenly, over the past decade, data and the privacy issues have started coming up a lot. So, what really we mean by data security?
So basically, the main definition of data security is the protecting the user's data or any kind of data from unauthorized access. So just you have a lot of data. Somebody can utilize it, misuse it for any kind of any other purposes, for any misuse. So basically, you to protect that from the misuse of data is called the data security at just very high level, at 10,000 feet, like you can say.
Right. So basically, misuse is exactly what we are talking about here. But what really uh, you know constitutes misuse? When do we say it's an unauthorized access? For example, if I go somewhere or if I am interacting with people, I would definitely want them to know about me. I would definitely want people to know a little bit about me and be able to alter their behavior maybe based on who I am, right? So I would definitely want some of the data to be passed on. So where does misuse start? Where does uh, you know what is that boundary where we start calling it unauthorized? When do we start protecting it?
So there is no, it's very relative, the boundary, whatever. So whatever is limited for you, it's not limited for me, right? So maybe you want others to know your company and all. So for example, simple example, I don't know, my introduction, I said one of the e-commerce companies I work, but I haven't mentioned my current company. Maybe I don't want to do that. So that's the one kind of boundary limit for me. So it depends on you. I mean, it's very relative. That's very debatable also. You can say for some users, for some users, for suppose I don't want others to know what my personal preferences or personal choices are. But if somebody is coming into that and breaching my privacy, that's a definitely data security concern.
Apurv, you I think have some thoughts around this. If you would like to go ahead and.
Sure, Tushar. I think on top of what Raj has mentioned, in my opinion, it's a very broad term, right? Data security, but it's directly proportional to the customer trust. Right. Customer, when they try to, it can be anything, right? It can be buyer, it can be seller, it can be even the experts, right? And it can be candidate as well. So it's basically try to it's directly proportional to the customer trust, and as a company, uh, how are we make sure the data of that particular user is not being accessed by any unauthorized or hacker or by other user as well. For example, I should not see Kaushik number of interviews, right? So in a bar raiser, if there is some way I can try to make a call from the browser and try to get the access of other expert, right? Even though I'm not even though my intention was different, but it's kind of data leaking from the company side, right? And that is where it's breaking the customer trust. So it's very relative, as Raj has mentioned, in my opinion, and it's basically fall under very different buckets, right? There are front end securities, there are back end kind of security, there are other ways we can basically try to uh, uh, bypass some sort of a rule where we get the access to other users, right? And even not just that data, but try to even act on that behalf of that user and make some unauthorized call, right? Which may not be intended, right? So there are different categorization of data security, but at the end, it's just a customer trust, right? When we hear the news about Facebook, WhatsApp, right? Why it is important to understand as a user, like my data is encrypted, something has not been listened to it, right? And it's been a data breaching is like very broad or in the limelight for a couple of years, I would say. because of all this news which is coming up, right? With a big organization, not just like some new startup, right? So yeah, I think that is very broad, in my opinion.
Right. Kaushik, Ashutosh, if you have any further thoughts.
Sure, Tushar. Like Raj and Apurv already mentioned about the data security, they are a broader chapter, right? And if we start discussing of why we are actually having this kind of meeting where we are discussing data security, the world like the world at least realized in 2017 onwards in this digital era to have this kind of protection when we started with lot of this kind of apps online. Like you mentioned on your, when you started, you don't have this many things. Probably the Orkut was the first which is started that time.
Yep.
And suddenly it goes down. And then Facebook came, right? A lot of things which was started happening that time is collecting the data, knowing people online, right? Knowing about each other, knowing about hobbies, knowing about their interest, then what they are doing, where they stay, all of those things. Now the companies, not only companies, even the government started doing a lot of things in this aspect to understand what is personal data, what is non-personal data, how basically bad entities in this world who can get benefit out of unintentional data. For example, when I'm saying unintentional, if I walk into a hospital, I give my details with the intention that yeah, somebody will give me some attention and fix whatever is my problems are. But if someone who is collecting my data, all my personal data, medical data, and then basically he's selling that to an insurance company or somebody else, then that is a data security issue for me. I'm just giving one example out of this, right? My intention was that I have went there for my certain issues, but some bad people has played a different role and sold my data or probably shared my data with some different intention. So that is what brings this kind of topic of data security in this market, not only in IT, but overall. And in India, for Aadhaar also, one of the biggest challenge was the data security, for which Indian government also came with lot of laws like PDP Act in 2019, 2019. And still it is under discussion with different panels. Yep, that's all from my side on this topic.
Thanks, Kaushik. Thanks. That was really eye-opening. Ashutosh, any closing comments on this particular subtopic?
Yeah, I think it definition of data security varies from organization to organization. I mean, for some of them, data security is more or less to protect the customer data from the outside threats. For some of them, it's like making it available to users as and when they wish, right? So this is where all the different regulations that we have, GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, SOX, RX, all those comes into place just to give the customer more control of the data they have. Also, at the same time, ensuring that the data they are asking for is not accessed even with the company internals. Most of the data security issues that I have seen in the past is, or at least in my previous experiences, because the employees of the companies or even who has access to data are not honoring the rules, or they want to get some data out of it, some analysis out of it, which they are not allowed to do. So data security these days is more or less, we already have so many good frameworks to protect at least against the phishing. The main issue is how do you protect data internally against the employees who has access to it. Yeah, this is I think the main trend which has been going from outside protection to the inside protection.
Right. We will definitely touch a little more upon the regulations and the kind of rules that we have or we are looking forward to. But let me circle back to what Kaushik mentioned. Kaushik, you gave an example and a very valid example of somebody going in a hospital and innocently providing their data. without any problems there. But then it might get misused either by hospital, maybe hospital sharing the data, or somebody acquiring that data by some kind of different means. Let's talk about more such examples. What are these? What are these kind of threats? What are all the different levels of threats that we are facing, both as not just as an individual, but also as organizations, right? I mean, the data security problem is there with organizations as well, right? So what are these different threats? What are the different means in which these kind of problems are happening? If we can discuss more on that.
One thing, Tushar, sorry to interrupt. We should also look at the chat window. There are people who also have some points they want to add, so we should parallelly, on those two. Yeah. Sorry, Kaushik, go ahead.
So just for the information of the entire group, we will take questions towards the end of the discussion, and please do keep posting the questions. That's not a problem, but we will during the end of the discussion. So, thank you. Thanks, Ashutosh, for pointing that out.
Okay. So Tushar, you asked about what are the challenges that as a company we are facing, right? As an individual, I have given one example, but from a company side, I can give many examples actually. The first and the classic example is when we moved to cloud, right? When any company who has their own acquired data center and now they are moving to any infrastructure as a service, right? A cloud provider. Now we have many cloud providers. Any company can go to any cloud provider based on their feasibility, based on their cost, based on their availability, whatever it is, right? The classic example here is when we are shipping all or moving all the data, a company's data, whether it is sales, whether it is employees database, whether it is their quotations to different organizations for their own services, whatever it is, right? Whether it is transactional or non-transactional, let's take in that way. If we move that data and let's say the the infrastructure as a service is not a trustworthy, okay, where they are just taking the data and then basically they don't have any encryption, they don't have any sort of data security, and then anybody can access that, right? If I am your competitor, then I will have the entire accounting data from your side, right? Which is a big loophole. That would be a classic example of a company facing a threat for a data security perspective. That is one thing. Second example would be like whenever a company is actually dealing with gathering the informations for any government authorities. For example, if I take Indian government example, Indian government has given this Aadhaar project to multiple in a starting phase, they have given this particular project to multiple vendors, giant IT companies in India. And somehow the data and the project itself was not clicked that time, right? It was not well authorized. A lot of debates are going on whether Aadhaar will be there or not, and all of those things. Sooner or later, we realize that a lot of people are onboarded, not only their basic details, but their biometric details are also there, right? So as a company, whoever owning this data, moving, like what I know is Oracle is behind the data part of it. If they are not signing certain contracts of not sharing this particular data to somebody else without any prior information, then we will be in much dangerous place, because our biometric is also there. Not only our fingerprints, eye scan, everything is there, right? So those are the critical things which will be like the consequences will be very high, right? Anybody can face a problem. So that is what I can give example in terms of the company perspective or from the government perspective as well.
Understood. Thanks, Kaushik. Raj, if you do you have any?
Yeah, so in general, you have a lot of examples, but I'm trying to tell in my real life example where I got some information. For example, if you're starting a new company, right? So and you want to promote your company and you want user emails, right? To promote your, how do you get the list of email IDs? So there are some agencies who sell this email IDs to anyone, like 1 rupee or 2 rupees per email. So if you want some 10,000 emails, if you get 10,000 rupees, they'll be giving that email list. And the probable email list, it's not just any email list, but suppose I'm working for Ola, so I have the all Ola users data. If suppose Tata wants to launch any new cabs company, so how do they approach to people? Either they should have their own customer list to send it, or if I have the Ola users list, if I send that, it will be more appropriate, right? So it will be direct to the target. So there are some agencies who can give that list. So, and when I was working for one of the startups, so into medical medicine deliveries, right? So they want to send customized emails to the people, to the senior citizens, because senior citizens are the people who will be needing the medicines, right?
Right.
They will be needing it regular intervals. So these people wanted to send emails and send them regular medicines every time. But how do they get senior people list who are very active? So I have got some sources where I can get the IRCTC data.
Oh,
So you have the age and the people name and email ID and where they are traveling from which location to all this information I can get it. So there are some agencies who can provide that IRCTC data. So these kind of things really happens, like at the back, maybe at the back door or whatever it is, but these things happen. And as a company, if I want to promote, that is the easiest way, even though I know it's not authorized way, but to promote and to grow fast, some people do that.
right. It's quite interesting to see that even a government body like IRCTC
Yeah.
would be would we call IRCTC a victim here, or is it a vulnerability with IRCTC, or are
Yeah.
they themselves not following guidelines?
Yeah, maybe if somebody is working in IRCTC, they can download the user data and then just give it to anyone, right?
Wow, that's very interesting.
So in whatever company you work, I have all the users data, so I can download at any point of time and give it to anyone.
Understood.
Yeah, and another example, not the example, but when I was working with one of the banks, where they have so much concern about the data security. So from last 35 years, they have been on-premises systems. So recently they wanted to move to cloud. They spent a lot of amount to create a new project, and I was doing all the migration work, and we set up everything, and we are just ready to start the execution. But they couldn't, even though everything is ready, we are moving to AWS. Everything is ready to start, but they couldn't give the green signal because they're still scared. They spent more than $2 million on the project, but still they want to scrap it just because they are so much scared. If that is there is something leak happens or something, the complete company will go. So even though we are taking all precautions, but still companies are so afraid of moving to cloud or whatever it is. So that is the level of data security these days people are following. But I see these things are happening in the last few years only. As you said, I'm also a veteran, like 16 plus years, right? So at that time, there's no point of data security and all that.
Yeah, and I think we kind of missed talking about that. Why only in the last few years? It's a very pertinent question, right? I mean, the problem
Because the internet has disrupted, like grown like anything in the last few years, right? It's like exploding like at the exponential rate. If you see the whole amount of data generated in the last till now, it is just doubled in last 2 years or so. Means whatever, maybe it will be again doubled. It will might doubled in next 1 year. Whatever data we have, so it's going at exponential rate. So you see a lot of people have internet. Even though technology is advancing, at the same rate, data security challenges are also advancing.
Okay. So actually, that reminds me, an organization using another organization's data. I often wonder when I am using, let's say, any of the uh, any of the food ordering apps, right? If I use Swiggy, why do I immediately get a notification from Zomato, right? And I mean, it's actually scary to see that it always happens at the exact same moment. It's always it always seems like almost like they are already there and they know exactly what you're doing all the time, and that seems to be really a big problem, right?
Yeah. And also, when if you are looking for a flights from a location A to location B in make my trip or somewhere, again when you open Facebook, you will get ads saying that cheap flights from location A to location B, wherever you are searched. So they are looking into your browsing history, and then they are trying to get the relevant ads like digital remarketing. So it is in so that there is no privacy until unless you do in private mode or incognito mode, so you are not escaped.
Apurv, Ashutosh, you've been kind of quiet during this discussion.
I think based on, so I've been into the front end most of my time. So there's a different angle I try to bring on. So what happened, like we keep the front end web security aspect very less, and we don't focus on much. Like it's something like there is a house we have all those lockers and everything, which is perfectly fine, which is our back end, but we keep door open for the thief to come, and that door is a front end, right? So I think I have a different perspective. I don't have much concrete, much strong opinion on the back end side of the thing. But what I can talk about from the front end is there are few things which are very basic in nature. If we're going to miss that, then it's basically leads to the leaking of the data, leads to, you may have, right, 2019 US made one of the website called Macy has reported the credit card stolen from their pages, right? All are because of a majority of that is because of the front end is not being used in the right way. Um, uh, Similarly, I've been into a team where there is a data regulation, I would say, as part of RBI guidelines, where the payment aggregator, right, similar to the Paytm, has to be data localized. What I mean by data localized is like when any transaction happens on the backend side, it has to be part of stored or through in India region itself. You cannot store it outside India region. And because of this compliance and all, I think it has a very great impact on the company or MNCs, right, to consider this, in my opinion, and work on a compliance issue, just in a view of data security, right? It holds true for GDPR topic as well. We can talk about that in later. So yeah, I have a mixed view on data security as a whole, I would say, right? So lot of things, like as I mentioned, like being a front-end engineer, if you keep the gate open for any hacker to come, right, it will steal something even though your backend has been properly secure enough, right? So it's very silly for us to not take care of that as well. So yeah, I think there are a few incidents which I know in my current company, or even in online, you can just see, right, where over the wire through network, people has basically hijacked the JavaScripts and try to read the page data and store and pass that page data to their own servers. We have heard about cross-site scripting. We heard about CSR. There are a lot of web security SQL injection, right? Typically around that. Yeah, I can talk about that in detail.
You're talking about scraping, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
Data scraping. Understood. Yeah, I think we all are guilty of that. I think almost every organization as of this state does involve themselves in some bit of scraping here and there, and a lot of bots running around on the different platforms. Ashutosh, what's your take on different kinds of threats we are talking about? What other threats do you see
Yeah. See, I think this is actually a very new phenomena of having your data protected. See, the current scenario is most of the companies are still ramping up. They don't have the process or even the backend support or architecture to protect the customer data. They are mostly relying on the open source technologies, encrypt the data, store it, hash it. That's what they do. But they don't have a clear process of, okay, you have protected data at the first point, but what about access? They don't have any control over the access. So this is where some of the companies have leaped quite far, like companies like Microsoft. They have leaped quite far. So process Microsoft is anytime you request to access customer data, even if you are employee, even if you are whichever level of employee you are, you can't access it. If you want to access some customer data, you will have to request for that access, and the customer you are trying to access has to approve your access. And that again depends on the level of data you're accessing. It's not only one level of data you're talking about here. Different kind of data, like PI data, non-PI data, PI data, which is quite sensitive in terms of nature, or there are other some parameters which are maintained at each data field level just to make sure at what time do you want to expose this data on. So these are the process that some companies they follow. Some companies like Facebook and Airbnb, what they do is they kind of give the trust on the employee, and they ask for the employee trust to honor the data and protect the company's data. But at the same time, they kind of audit the data. If any data they in excess, they kind of keep auditing it. And in future, so there is a rules and regulation on this, right? If you have heard, sometime back, around 6-7 months back, the same thing happened, and an employee from the organ itself kind of leaked the data. The claim or the whole liability was actually shifted to the employer, because as per the rules and regulations of when you access the company data, it is the employee who is responsible for the company. So this has already been implemented, and there are certain rules, at least in the US, which kind of prevents the company to take all liability on. But that again, given that that agreement has been signed, so this is how it works in at least in what I know. So the problem is the ramp up, right? The problem is the newness of this particular trend of data security, and there are so many that's going on, and so many there are so many organizations whose whole goal is to just fetch the data from companies, right? And other companies are not ramped up to this. So probably over the some years, this will be more matured topic or more matured infra. But for now, I don't think it is. For now, it's like some people are, but some people are blankly unprotected, like Google, Facebook. There are some sections of Google which are not protected yet. But Facebook is anyways, anyone knows. Daily they are in use. So
Yeah, that's a very interesting point you mentioned, Ashutosh. I think what you're trying to say is that sometimes some of the companies don't even. You gave a specific example of Airbnb, if I remember correctly, and you said that they don't exactly protect their data per se. They do an audit later on, and they basically rely on the trust. They go with the trust with the customer, and they go with that kind of philosophy, right? But does that would that also mean, and this is for all the all four of the panelists, would that also mean that some companies actually need that data to be available to different parties, different people, irrespective whether that can be misused or not? And mostly it becomes about protecting themselves from any kind of liabilities, which Ashutosh very rightly pointed out right now. What are your thoughts, guys?
My thought on this is like maybe whatever is mentioned is intentionally done. People or companies may have a thought like, instead of me, somebody else will be claimed or pointed if there is some law comes and do some auditing in this particular part. But coming back to a tier 1 company, uh, or even in tier 2, where you are dealing with few of the countries where the data protection law is really strict, where you will get a fine of near about 20 million euros or 4% of your revenue, whichever is high, if the auditing fails, right?
Right.
For those companies or for those countries where the companies is actually dealing data, they cannot do that. And they, I believe in 2018 onwards, a lot of things change in terms of internet, especially on the data part. The data security was data security was in a era where it has reborn, right? It gets its new form altogether to figure out what are the categories where the data can be shared and cannot be shared. And even if you are sharing, how many days you are going to keep it, how you are going to keep it. When I'm saying keep it means the data in rest and data in motion. That minor level of details are also being exposed, discussed, and contracted between the companies for a specific given data. Okay, so I as I mentioned, I I don't have fully agreed to this particular point, but as per my understanding, as I've worked in fintech as well, okay, and the companies where the data protection law is really strict, I don't see a place where even the employee of that company who owns the database, let's say I'm talking about a DBA here, right, who actually creates the database, even they cannot identify a customer, even if they have the user table, very classic user table, right, where you have name, phone number, email ID. That data also, if you have given to that particular employee, he or she will not able to identify that particular individual or a customer. It is that much of encrypted. The raw plain text was never kept into the database or any kind of storage. So that kind of environment I have seen. So I slightly disagree with this particular point. Obviously, my agreement will come only if both the parties have very tight contract where they have mentioned all of these integrity details of keeping the data, how many data that they are taking, what all individual information. Like if I want to identify myself, I may have n number of details, right? But for a company's business, probably few things are required, like my location, my phone number, or something. So all of those integrity details need to be mentioned in that contract. How many days you are going to retain that data, that also need to be there. And how you are going to keep the data, those information need to be there. And not only in other countries, I prefer to say about my country. And I can see in India also, all of these things are already very clearly chalked out. And they have created the PDP Act on those lines only. Because of some political things are not yet probably strictly enforced, but it is enforced to many places.
Got it. I think Raj wants to add to it.
Yeah, so I agree with Kaushik on this, because a lot of companies have a lot of policies regarding the data security when it comes to BTC, mainly B2C, where they are taking the user information. So I have seen companies where I was working, they take the user consent before whenever you want to use any user's data for any analysis, we'll take the user consent, then only it will be taken. So that is the first filter which we take. Whatever users data we want to analyze, we should have the user consent first. Then only we should be able to use it for any kind of analytics in the downstream systems. Even though, and also if the user has a given consent, again at any point of time, user can revoke that. He can again say right to forget, right to so he can again revoke the whatever consents are given. So at any point of view, when he gives that, so the company or whatever organization should have to delete it from the user data from the database, as well as all the downstream applications. So we have been working on it, like to make it smooth flow. yeah, we are spending a lot of time and effort for that, but definitely it is needed. So I think it will be the same for in most of the organizations where the user consent is very important. So without that, we should not be doing anything.
I think to be fair, and Ashutosh, I'll circle back to you. Because you probably will need to elaborate more on that. But I think from what I understand, what Ashutosh was trying to say is, it's not about the company deliberately sharing the data or being involved in that, but certain level of vulnerability that you can maintain, and basically circumvent the guidelines or the regulations, and also make sure that in the process you make sure that some part of that business basically expands because of the data being available for multiple parties. And so with that, Ashutosh, I would let you once again maybe make the point more clear for the audience. Ashutosh. He might be having some internet issues probably. Ashutosh, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Maybe you need to unmute yourself first. Okay, we'll circle back to that if time permits. Apoorv, any last thoughts?
Right. I think I agree with Kaushik points, to be honest. I think if for a company, there is something called data classification. How are you classify your data? And each level of information is being handled differently. For example, if there is any public information, so take an example of Flipkart. I think their seller rating, in my opinion, you can correct me, maybe it's kind of a public where a customer can see, right? So way to store that is different, where any critical information or confidential information, right? Critical is a top, right? Where you can basically, like for example, customer credit card, right? To handle that particular data, it's basically very different, right? And it's all basically maybe encrypted, where you cannot, as a user, as a company employee, right, you may not be able to read fully from your backend. What I know, right, from your service to service is basically get encrypted, or on the service itself get duplicated, and then the payment happens, right? You are not allowed to even view the full credit card number which is masked on the UI. So having said that, is all depend on the data classification of your page or the use case what we are trying to build, right? Typical, I think I was reading some of the chats also, like I have seen companies are reading contact books, right? So there are companies where they are not storing the contact book or contact information on their database, they're just storing in the user device so that they can read faster. In the sense, there's something called secure storage on their side itself, right? Which basically any app, the app you have written can access that kind of a cache mechanism, right? But there are companies who are reading that they should have a user consent around, hey, I'm going to read and store this contact information from my end, and user should be comfortable doing that as well. So the consent, I think, is very important. Similarly, when we say OTP, right? So OTP, I don't think we basically, if you see, there is an Android API, in my opinion, which basically is very flexible to read the OTP for the particular regex of your company, and it is something where you're not storing the data, in my opinion, what I've seen and understand the architecture for other company. So it all depends how the underlying architecture, the consent, the data classification, and what are the different data classification happens. I think that is my take, but I agree with Kaushik points completely.
Okay. So since we've touched upon this particular topic, let's expand on this and try to understand from a technology standpoint, or rather, maybe the way we design our contracts today, the way we interact with individuals or different entities. What have we done so far? What are the kind of protections? What kind of preventions are available in the ecosystem right now, which which organizations might be using day in day out very regularly, or trying to build their systems around. We did talk about making sure that the contract has user consent. That is one way of doing it. Are there any technological advances that we've made which ensure that we can protect the data to a certain extent?
Okay. So Tushar, I think there are many. Again, there are different categories, different channels where things are happening in different ways. As I mentioned, the category is required where you want to segregate the security part, right? Like Apur mentioned, he worked mainly on the UI. So from a UI perspective, how you are collecting the data, storing the data on the client browser, that is more required from a data security perspective, so that nobody can do a phishing with the JavaScript or jQuery, right? Similarly, when anybody submits a form in their laptop or in a mobile, right, the data moves from his device over the internet and comes to a server. How the data is coming, whether it is a simple HTTP or you have HTTPS or TLS on top of that, that is also required to know, right? So giving you a few example of where we worked, like generally I worked in this meeting, sorry, I should not say we. I worked is like in that company now, we used to have this segregation very well, and we have round table discussion with the different teams, different stakeholders, to understand how they are actually going to address these problems, right? What are the standards? Like I'm an architect, so my point is very clear that each stakeholder should understand the criticality of it. They should understand why we are doing certain things, and then basically they should understand what we will implement so that we can adhere or we can be in that standards, right? So layer by layer, if I go starting from UI, then internet, then basically coming to a specific infrastructure as a service, then keeping the data there, and then basically cleaning the data, and then if we have backups, then how we will keep the backups. All of these things have their own security layer. So I can keep talking on those things. I can keep going in depth on each of these layer. But yeah, you let me know which specific layer would we discuss here, so that I can go and give you my learnings or my the way. As I mentioned, I am by job I am an architect. So what are the things that we look first whenever we have a project, whenever we have dealing with data? Mainly I have worked with ML, right? So I have dealt with almost like per day 4 TB of data, right? So when I'm dealing with that massive volume of data, what are the things that we look, right? So I can give you one example before you ask me a specific question. For example, when we are dealing with a data lake is nothing but keeping the data in a cloud storage where you will have massive amount of data. It is not like GBs or TBs. It can be a PBs. Starting with TB, it can go to PB, right? Petabytes of data. So when we are dealing with that kind of data, we keep the data in rest, which is like when we are not using that as operational data, that is what we are calling as rest. That time we encrypt it via encryption keys. In AWS, we have different kind of encryption keys. Even the client can provide an encryption key, right? So we used to have encryption keys on that. Each storage, each specific region also we have that. Okay, and then when we move that data, when we do that operations, let's say using Spark or any kind of tool, ETL tool, when we are putting on top of that and then basically processing that data, that time also, if we identify anything which is related to user and which can help to identify a specific person throughout the world, then basically we mask it. Okay, and that mask is also one-way directional mask, which is like MD5 kind of thing, right? Which cannot be again demasked, because this data are analytical purpose data, right? Now, if you have a specific use case, like you want to see how many users are from a specific location, you hide the user information, like who are the user, and then basically only figure out how many, from that location point of view, you figure out how many users are there in that particular location. But you cannot tell that, yes, this user is there in that location, right? So that kind of analytical data we have used. So just to give you one example.
Awesome. This really opens up a plethora of topics actually, Kaushik.
Yeah.
But definitely thanks for that. I agree. I mean, this is something, such a wide range of topics and a wide range of technologies that might have happened. Let me shift the focus to Raj first. I think Raj has been waiting to say something. Then we'll come back to this.
No, most of the points are covered by Kaushik. So I was about to tell a few things. So data security, but first of all, the thing is, users should be aware of whatever they're doing on the internet. I mean, I don't know how we do it, but every user in the world should be aware of what they are doing. They should have some common sense, like without giving information to fraudsters. But we cannot control it. We cannot. That's not in our hand. But if there is a way to do that, that's the first thing we should do to minimize this data theft or data security issues. So at the organizations level, so their organizations also very much worried about the data security. We do lot of things to make sure that we are enabled with data security. Like one thing is the PII data. So for most of the analytics, you don't need you won't be looking at the single user or single user email ID, which information which is identified by a single user. So it can be like at a very high level. Those PII information can be masked so that we can look at only the numbers, how many number of users for this criteria, for this segment. Now we can look at the numbers, but not who is that person. So we should be able to mask the data. That we are doing it anyways in most of the places where we work with user analytics. And another thing is when we are giving the access to the users also. So those also, I mean, to try to restrict it as few people as less as possible, but it's not, we cannot have any exact number like that. But if somebody needs access, we are like following strict protocols, like they should sign the NDA, and with proper approvals only they should be able to get the access, so as to minimize this. And also if they're downloading the data into a local laptop, that we cannot do anything. So if they're creating the user tables, we are going so much strict that at periodical intervals we are creating the tables which are created by users, basically which contain the user information. So those precautions also we are taking to delete at regular intervals, to monitor those tables who are creating that, and then deleting and dropping them at regular intervals. So yeah, these are the few things which we are taking as precautionary measures. Instead of worrying about after the damage is done, you should be looking at how to prevent that.
Got it. So Raj and Kaushik, Apurv is gonna be right back. He'll be there in another 5 minutes. But when is this data most vulnerable? Really, when can it be accessed by somebody more easily? While it's in storage, or while it's in transit, and what specifically can we do or have we done so far to address those particular areas is really what I would want to know. So Kaushik, I mean, you mentioned that I should be a little more specific, but let's first find out where we should really point out, what really is the most vulnerable area, and let's talk about that.
For me, see, let's break this question into two parts to answer, actually, not the question, actually, to answer. Let me break the answer into two parts. One is basically who is using or who is creating the data, right? One person who is actually creating the data, they should be very, very smart to know what we are giving, right? And the person who is taking the data or using the data, or basically storing the data, right? They are responsible for uses of that data. So when you are talking about vulnerability, I would say these two different areas are highly responsible. Okay, the person who is generating the data and the person who is using the data, right? So let me give you example in this again. A simple example, right? When you are actually mentioned about why we are discussing like so much of the data security, because like you have asked this question sometime back, like previously there was no such data security concept itself, and now we are using that. So I was just googling around some stats, right? The internet user in it, let's say 2012 in India was few millions, 150 million or something like that, right? Now it is in billions, right?
Right.
So that's the need. It's the time change that we have right now, and that's creating this particular thing. Now coming back to this question, when I mentioned the originator, like who creates the data, and then basically who actually keeps the data, both are responsible, both are the areas where the vulnerability can happen, right? I can give you one simple example. When you are opening any website nowadays, because of this GDPR, you will get a pop-up saying this particular site want to use cookies in
Yes.
your in your browser, right? Cookies are nothing but a kind of small data or metadata which will be kept in the browser. For people who are non-technical in this call, I just want to be specific on that part. And what exactly that they do, they are small programs. They just capture whatever the data your browser is stored so far, right? They will keep capturing that data. It may be within the within this particular website, or outside of the website, which is stored in the local storage of your browser, right? So when you are actually clicking on OK, there will be a small button which is deactivated kind of thing. It is very dull in color. Okay, and if you click that, they will ask you that, okay, fine. They have to give you the details, what all information they are collecting from your that one OK click, right? As a data or as a user, I generally do what? I generally open, okay, somebody is popped up, okay, click OK, use cookies. But what all data it will just use or read from your browser, I don't know. So if you go a little deeper there, you will find each will read each and everything, your personal data and everything. Now, if the website is good, right, then it will have individual points. Like I will read your personal information, I will read your this information, locations, this, that, all of those things. But if
Right.
it is not adhered to the standards, then basically they will just ask for OK or deny. The moment you deny, will be some features which will be not available. The moment you click on OK, the features will be available. But one OK click can give all the informations that the that website owner is looking for from your own laptop or your own mobile or tablet, whatever you are using, right? That is called vulnerability. So I mean to say, like, as a user, as an individual, if I am not paying attention, then that is also a vulnerability for me, and that is also creating this data breach within this ecosystem. And now coming back to the companies, obviously, company to company it vary. There are enough example given by Raj and Apurv, I think, on IRCTC as well, which is big question mark. But I can really appreciate that. And if you see, if the companies or the owner or a government body who is not following the standards, then everybody's data is in toss. Nobody can do anything, right? And it will be a big loss for the company also if their data is going out in the market and their competitor know how to use it. So that is the biggest weapon for them also. So today probably for a smaller price you are selling your data, but tomorrow it will hit you back again.
Right. So that's very interesting. I think Raj and Kaushik, both of you mentioned that eventually it actually comes down to the user's common sense, right? I mean, they uh, so is there really nothing that further can be done? Because we all know, right? Common sense is the most uncommon thing in the world, and although we can talk about educating the people and making sure that people understand the vulnerabilities and the problems that they can face, but in the moment when you are really browsing or going through a product experience of an app, this is one thing that probably somebody would definitely not be thinking about at that moment, right? And it's very difficult for somebody to have that sense of going and really exploring all the details that are going to be passed on, and also to be able to understand what really that means. If I give them my current location, what does that really mean for me as an individual? How does that affect me in terms of my security, in terms of my vulnerability, right? How does that affect me? So those kind of questions I would not be able to answer in that moment. I would not know. So what further can we do really? Or how can we? Are there any ideas floating around in the world? Do we have uh, any particular kind of guidelines in the pipeline? Uh, where are we right now?
So maybe some compliances should be coming from the government. Like one is like GDPR compliance. So similar compliances should be passed by the government to make laws around the data privacy and data security, so that users might be scared to do that once they're caught or something like that. Government should enforce strict laws to do that. That can be because as a user, even though I'm into that, I'm into data, I won't be reading all the things. So whatever cookies I'll blindly say okay without looking into it, because I don't have so much time and patience to do all those things. Yeah. So that we cannot control. But if it is some laws to be enforced by the government, then people might be thinking before doing any kind of phishing or any kind of things, misuse of the data.
Right.
And also, as an
Sorry.
organization, they should be doing multi-factor authentication or something which nobody can enter their into their data world without so easily. So if you have like so those things are already there, but if you have just open database connection, if you have username and password, you can connect it from anywhere, then that will be a little bit of high risk of anyone can be. So I have seen in some companies, some startups, where I have the user credentials. I haven't stored it, but if I stored it, I could have used it now. Some SFTP credentials where they have all the client data. If I have single file, I used to have maintain single file where I used to have all the username and password. If I have that file now, I left the company, I can access all the data. That is simple vulnerability. They should be taking care of that, those things.
Right. I think Kaushik is raging to go, but before that, I would like Apoorv also to pitch in if there is something you can say. Apoorv, you're back, right?
Yeah, I'm back, Tushar. Sorry, I didn't listen to the full question, so maybe I can go after Kaushik and understand what you have asked. I joined in between.
Yeah, no, I'll let me repeat
Mhm.
so far. So basically, we discussed very briefly that eventually it kind of falls down to the individual user to apply their common sense when they are typically, taking actions like clicking on accept cookies on a browser, a very, very simple action per se, but it might lead to a lot of vulnerabilities because the kind of data that you share, you might not know, right? And then we said that even when we are careful, even when we know what data we are sharing, we might not know what it means to share that data basically. So if I share my location or if I share my um, my browser history or something like that, how can that be misused or what that means for me in the long term? So does that
Mhm.
the ability to apply that common sense is restricted? So what further can we do technologically or through guidelines like GDPR or other guidelines to make this more and more protective? So that's the discussion we are having right now.
Got it. I think my opinion is where if you talk about if you just leave it from the user common sense, right? I don't think it's going to be solved. People will click on it. People will click on emails. People will click on the unauthorized SMS. People will basically click on any ad or when they're surfing, right? So I don't think that is going to save. Be as an engineer, I think we can just think through that and aware of it. But from a technology standpoint, I think there are two things which maybe I can talk about. The one is like it should be regulated from the government. As I think Kaushik mentioned about PDP, so is it been enforced? Right. For example, when you talk about GDPR, they have a timeline. When you talk about this data localization, which for payment aggregator enforced by RBI, they have a strict timeline. And after that, you're not allowed to be a payment aggregator if you are not storing that transaction data in the India data store, right? So all those has to some come up with a date. So and the enforcement, I think that's where the startups in the mature company will start taking it in that in a positive I think in a right way. Else, like I have seen, I have seen early age startup where people have store user ID and password on local storage, and it's very easy, right, to get it if you have a cross-site scripting attack somewhere, right? You are basically, you can steal user ID and password for the user. You should not store that, right, without any encryptions as well. Similarly, like I've seen even when you are doing some OAuth authentication, right, you are storing that in the local storage rather than the HTTP only cookie, which is basically more secure and JavaScript cannot read that, right? So these are few very small. The code changes just one a couple of lines, right? It doesn't take much, but taking the decision from that onwards, where if you are not storing that in the sake of move fast, I would say typically when we say, right, we need to move fast in a startup world, let's try to think through, let's store these credentials on the user, and especially I have seen the trend in single page application, right? Typically when you talk about the web 1.0 world, right, where you have every page is basically a different form submit, so there is no need to be stored a lot of information on the client or browser state. The trend has changed in last years, where I would say 7 or 8 years down the line, with the frameworks, right, with the latest frameworks and library, which basically allow us to build awesome front end single page application, which leads to security issues, right, which we not handled correctly. So I think
Right.
yeah, that is something I can talk about in more detail, but I'll let others also to chime in. Uh, you know.
Right. So, Kaushik, over to you. You do seem to have some more points to make.
I think your question was mainly that what are the restrictions which are there, right? So yeah, the famous one is before GDPR, I would say the China's policy. They don't have anything outside of China. Not a single data you cannot have outside of China. And then comes GDPR, right? Where you have they actually segregated who is the actor, who is generating data. If you're generating data, what are the things that you should adhere? And they put a very high fine, very huge fine penalty, right? So that there people should have the fear when you are actually doing business with use data or use what to say, like within you, or you are dealing with the use data, right? All of those things are automatically adhered when you are putting that kind of penalty. Coming back to India, PDP and our government is still struggling. There is different, what I heard last time, if I'm correct, there was a different panel of justice who are actually doing this, right? I forgot his name, doctor starting with B or something. He's basically leading it. And there are few MPs also who are actually part of those panelists. So there are a lot of discussions still going on, but yeah, they have, the good thing is they have articulated it. They have created what need to be happen, why certain things need to be happen. But the point is, it is not enforced yet, like Apurva or Raj mentioned, right? That enforcement is not happened. So that is still missing as part of the government wise. Coming to company wise, I believe every company, at least in India, whomever I work with or I know as a consultant, they are using it, and all the HRs will give you the first training as the data protection training only, the exam, right? The learning exam you will get from the company is the data protection learning exam, and you have to pass that. You have to listen to the video first, then go through the slide shows, and then basically give some answers, and you have to click and pass good score on that particular thing. Then only you will start writing codes or be part of the development team, or even the official team, whether you are from any department. So things are there, little slow in India, but yeah, we are still ramping up on this particular thing. But yeah, people are now understanding, even if they are using a mobile phone, not a tech savvy guy, they also understand that, yeah, data privacy is really important now, and the data is basically shared now with WhatsApp and other things. They understand. And recently the incident happened with government and WhatsApp, even for TikTok, these things are very much highlighted in the media, as well as in a non-technical person as well understand that, yeah, these are few things which are important, and people started cautiously using these things, what to share, what not to share, right? How much time I can share certain things in the applications. Even iOS or Android, if you see, they have certain things. They will pop up you that these are the apps which are using background service, using your locations, using your data, right? Whether you want to share that or not. So those kind of check marks are still put into different environments. That is what I would like to say.
Right. And good that you mentioned iOS and Android. I think iOS has really banked on the security features, which to make it more and more craved for. The whole market of iPhone currently basically swears by its security features, and
Exactly.
that seems to be the major differentiator between iOS and Android as of now.
Yes.
So really important point there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about more of how we can further educate people. I think you did mention that people have become aware a little, and they are protecting themselves to some extent. However, if I'm correct in my understanding and in my experience, even in the tier 1 cities, uh, it's not really widespread. That kind of knowledge or information is not exactly widespread. It probably would be 40 to 50% people who are really aware. How do we increase that awareness? What, as organizations, as individuals, as people in this domain, how can we think of ways in which people can be educated, people can actually know what's going on, and where they are really vulnerable? this is more of a thought-provoking kind of thing where we can probably just think of ways we can approach the subject. So like, yeah, go ahead, Kaushik. Sorry.
Yeah. So basically, from educating people or making them understand what is happening, right? If your question is specific to a region like India, it is little hard because we have mixed group of educated versus educated. Common, as you mentioned, common sense is not so common, right? These things are there. There are a lot of people who started creating apps, creating websites as a startups, and they keep sharing the data, right? Whatever it is, even if they have 100 users, they will still sell the 100 users data. They don't have that fear right now. But in seeing India market versus other countries where the literacy is little higher, I would say it is much easier in there versus here. For our country, I would say the most important thing is the media, which is already publishing all of these things, right? Like what data is shared, what data is not shared. For example, WhatsApp started after the controversy of WhatsApp between Indian government and WhatsApp. They started advertisement of encryptions, right? They enabled a feature of sharing something which can be viewed only once, right? And they actually advertise those things into the media, right, with proper advertisement, which actually educate people, like they understand this feature. For example, my mom use WhatsApp, but she don't know what is sharing. She don't even know how to share a photo or click a photo and then basically share in a group. Individually she can do, right? She can know how to pick up the phone and cut the phone, but at the same time explaining her that this is nowadays nobody uses the keypad phone, right? So everybody has to have a smartphone, so she is also using it. But she is not a pro user, not even pro, means average user of using it. She know how to pick up and how to cut. Now if somebody is calling a video call and then basically other one person is leaving the phone, she probably don't understand how to, it is there or not there. Sometimes that confusion happens, right? So those kind of educations need to happen within the family, right? And obviously big giants are doing it. Few giants are actually doing it, like Facebook, WhatsApp. They are doing it. They are properly doing it with proper advertisements, proper seminars, media, all of those things. But as an individual, if we start circulating this information around us, that also will help. That also will increase the number of people who knows things, right? Who knows how to handle certain things. That's all I would like to say.
Great points. Yeah. Shall you go ahead?
Yeah, I think I agree to Kaushik point, but on other hand, right? I think lot of responsibility comes under us, right? Which is like engineers in my opinion, right? Where how can we basically create a software which is taking care of this without people understanding this technical or tech savvy terminology and reading these terms and condition and everything, right? You may not be able to read like what is cookie, right? If you see, like if my dad, or as Kaushik mentioned, right, his mom is opening any website and say, hey, can you accept, there's a big pop-up come, right, accept cookie. So maybe like if they're not aware of what does it mean, right? But as a company, like when we are building and any application, be a software or any app, right? I think a lot more. I think we should consider the cyber or the web security or cyber security as one of the first step rather than towards the end, right? When we actually detect. So there's something called do it early rather than waiting for something happen and then fix it, right? How we basically take care of our API stacks, the front end, right? We don't wait for the user to see, hey, this button is not working, rather than we go and fix it and then make the application smooth. So yeah, I think this one, and I think slowly, I think the media also will have a bigger role, when there is a Facebook link and there's a WhatsApp, right? But it's both pros and cons in my opinion. There are a lot of media where it basically scares the user to the point where, hey, this is something how the WhatsApp and Facebook is reading the data, whether we should use it. But on the other hand, people are basically not able to delete that particular app because of all the social media pressure or presence in the opinion. So, and that's how the app, like the newer app, right, the Telegram and other app, which comes and say, hey, I'm more secure than other thing.
Right.
So I think the media also have a good play if you wanted to cover majority of India use case, where there are a lot of channels which is in regional languages, and we can take that help as well. On the other hand, being a software engineer, we should also take it while developing the application. How can we take the security as the number one tenet of, or the data security is number one tenet for building any software pieces.
So we basically design around security rather than try to embed security.
Yeah, right. Try to adopt it. I think we should take into the consideration from the day one itself, rather than saying, okay, now I think I have millions of users who is sharing this data. Now, how can I basically store in a, or how can I basically store in a proper way, which is basically not something which is have a data breach issue, right? So I think, in my opinion, we should take it from the day one. Should consider it from part of a day.
Understood. Thanks, Apurv. Yeah, so I would also like to hear from Raj what else can we do? What other options do we have available to us?
Yeah, most of the points are already covered, but I've seen few movies also where this data breach is happening, and then villains are making advantage of it and then making a lot of money. So those kind of movies, at least people will be aware of that. That is the easiest way to reach people, I would say.
So you mean the whole building this kind of reality into fictional stories in the movies, or are you talking about actual documentaries being created around these? And
yeah, if documentary is created, nobody will see. Yeah, I mean, we should encourage those kind of movies which will be like entertainment, right? So I know a couple of movies which are into this, and they clearly show how they hack the phones and how do they take out the money from the account and all. So which people should be aware that at least the basic things. So data security is at different levels, right? One is like just going into someone's bank account and clearing out the money. So that is the highest level of threat, we can say, where the money itself is going. Another one is the data privacy, which is like my data is being misused somewhere, which is okay, next level. The next one is that knowing about the personal details, which is something private to me, but it is known to some other people. So that is maybe the next level. So at least the highest level can be controlled if people use some common sense.
That's actually very interesting. So I mean, it seems Bollywood needs its own James Bond and Ethan Hunt.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, we look forward to that. I think one thing that we have not exactly talked about, and because we all come from a technology background, or somewhere associated with it. If somebody goes into a shop and shops for something, at the cashier counter, they still provide their mobile number and email ID, right? And I think that is one very, very vulnerable place to leave your PII. Is there any way we can do something about that? Where does that end, or how do we make sure that doesn't end into a huge amount of vulnerability?
So that's like a personal choice. I think that will not be mandatory one to give a mobile number and email ID. If at all it's mandatory to give you can give any random number or any random email, so that you will not be compromised. But if you want, I don't see any problem with that because I know that they are taking my number. If there is any misuse, I can sue them. So I believe in that I am aware of that my information is provided to them. So they cannot misuse it because it's an open secret between them and me that I have given my details and they can't do anything with that. If you believe in that, then it's okay with that. But if you are still scared out of it, but it's up to the individual personal things whether to do it or not.
Right. Yeah, and I think since they are not sending an OTP, you can always give a mobile number at that moment. But probably the user, at some point, the customer has to understand that they are the first conduit of this flow of information. So they have to take their own measures at some point of time. I think. So I think we had a really engaging discussion. It was really wonderful. I would like to open the floor for the other participants. Let me look at the chat and go through it a little. If there are any questions on the chat, we'll take that first, and then if people can unmute and ask the questions themselves. So let me read out a few of the points that were made in the chat. There's a lot. So basically, somebody mentioned that not exactly can the employee download users' data. I think Raj, this refers to what you were talking about, IRCTC.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, that's clearly data theft, but that also comes under data security, as I said. Yeah, but clearly that is a data theft.
Yeah, it's basically data theft. So yes, I mean Raj Mignani, we actually agreed that. So again, Raj Mignani writes into apps have permissions to read messages on users' phone. Yep. So a very good point here. SMS, reading SMS seems to be one of the major vulnerabilities that are created. Right? You get your bank SMS and suddenly apps are sending you notifications on how to spend your money. Right? Once you get the salary SMS. So that I can think of one example. So yes, Raj, to answer your question, I think they can read your messages, all your messages, once you have given them the permission. OTP passing uses separate Android level API. So there's Apurv. Apurv, you're still there, right?
I think he left.
Okay. I think Apurv raised this point on chat, but he also very briefly mentioned during the discussion that contact books information should be stored within the user device and not on the company database. So that allows it to be at least not available to third parties. Okay. So here's a question by Raj Mignani. Any insights into edge data storage, like storing data on user's phone, and every time the app needs to use the data, get it from the user's phone itself? I think we covered this. Raj, do you have any further question on this? I mean, was that understood, or do you need more discussion on this?
Hey,
Raj?
everyone. Yeah, so Hi, Tushar. So basically, my point was, yeah, are we really doing it in place somewhere down the line? Like all the PIE data is stored on user's phone, and every data access by the company or any such needs to be accessed and be in user's stake. Like every time, if I need to know user's name, I go to user's device and kind of store it. So I mentioned few of the pitfalls that could be out there. So if you can highlight, like if you read on, I've mentioned two of them basically. So if you can put in some insights on that or anyone on the panel.
Okay, so let me read out what you've written, Raj. So you've written like storing data on users' phone, EAP, PII, and every time the app needs to use the data, get it from user's phone itself. Possible problems being data lost, but it will be on user's stake only. That's correct. Yeah, right. And for PII, people can agree to this. Once lost, they can update again. And data theft from users' phone may happen, but again, that can be protected by giving them the key. But the key will be stored with the company, right? So yeah, I think that makes sense. Definitely. Um, your comment about common sense, Raj, nobody meant to use it as a negative connotation, but it's like it's difficult to have the same level of understanding across a populace, and that is basically what we were talking about. Yeah, I'm sorry if it came out as a negative thing. Right. So I think we finished with the chat messages. If anybody else in the audience has any questions they would like to pose to Raj or Kaushik, please go ahead. Or me.
I put in one more thing in the chat if you can read upon things upon monitoring of all the apps from the OS level. So this is Raj Miglani here.
Raj, since you're here, why don't you just go ahead and talk about it? That would be better actually.
Yeah, so all the apps that are like kind of installed on our systems on users' devices, controlling the data monitoring and doing some sort of changes in the OS level on this sort, because OS has all the control of all the apps. So can this be a feature enabled already, like things like in iPhone or Android? I don't know, it's in Android, but even in iPhone, it doesn't display or pops up that this is a suspicious activity kind of going on with this app. So giving it more on the hands of users, informative kind of thing that this app is kind of monitoring this thing. So that can be very well controlled and tracked from the OS sense. So just wanted to know anyone's insights into it.
Let me take this, Tushar. Yeah, I'm on mute, right? Yeah. So Raj, good point. Good question as well. Two things, right? From a OS perspective, if you are thinking, and the major player of OS is iOS and Android, right? iOS is doing it. So if you, I'm not sure, if you go a little deeper on the iOS implementation, they started it from, I think, iOS 10 itself. All the particular apps need to be compliant with their security policies. Even there are checkpoints in iOS when you are actually putting your app into iOS store, right? A team from iOS itself
So
will.
yes, so that's being deploying your app or publishing your app on the store, that is well known. So I was wondering, whenever right now I'm using Zoom, right? So if I'm using Zoom on a device, I should get a kind of pop-up in simple terms that my OS says that Zoom is an application running on your phone, and it is using these of kind of information, so that the user is very well aware that this is being used, your mic is being used, your recording is being made, everything. So in layman terms, the OS can very well control it. So is it being like, I don't think it's applicable or any OS is doing it right now. or how well that can be achieved, or will that be a good business model to do it, or what? Yeah.
Many questions you have suit in this question
Yeah, so
actually.
it's a kind
But
of context
yeah,
revolving.
yeah. So let me just answer few of them. OS is actually doing it. Okay, even Android is doing it and iOS is doing it. I will take one by one. And iOS is still doing it, but it is not highlighting it until unless it is
Yeah.
crossing a certain threshold. So in iOS code, if you go a little deeper on iOS implementation, right, they have threshold for each and everything. If your any app which is taking memory high, if it is taking consumption of their CPU high, then it will highlight that. But if it is not crossing the threshold, then it will not complain about it. But still it can report on that particular app what all information it is taking if you go manually and check that in the settings. Okay, that is what iOS is doing it. Coming back to the Android, the loophole Android has is Android OS, which is purely from Google, is actually doing the same kind of thing where they have a threshold which is little higher in margin from iOS in terms of they can allow a app more freely than iOS is actually allowing it. However, all the mobile players is using the Android's flexibility of creating a wrapper on top of it. For example, Xiaomi is basically, or MI basically is famous from China, and they basically created a wrapper on top of Android, right? They have their own OS layer on top of Android. Similarly, Samsung has it. They create this particular restrictions based on their business use case. They actually use the loopholes for their business gain. Okay. However, iOS is not actually giving that. Now, again, it is not a debate on iOS is good or Android is good, but as per my knowledge and the code that I have reviewed so far in my experience on iOS and OS, Android, I have found these are the things which are there. It is just because of their business, because of their footprint increase, they are actually playing around with this particular policies. That's it, nothing else. But
yeah, exactly, because
from a
at the
user
OS level, we'll be having the data footprint, as you rightly said,
exactly.
right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
they can very well highlight it, but they won't because of the business model stuff, right?
Yes, exactly. So from the business perspective, they are not highlighting, but iOS is actually doing a little bit, which is a little tricky as well. They just kept certain threshold, and they have published that also in the contract. When you are actually going and publishing your app into the app store, they will tell you that, boss, this is the thresholds, and if you are crossing this, if you are reading a message, you cannot read a transaction. So they created categories also, right? Transactional message are different, so they are taking the PI as a different case altogether. So you cannot read a transactional message unless you have the consent from the user manually, right? So all of those things are there in place, but little bit education is also required, individual to individual.
Great, thanks for the insights, Kaushik.
Let me take this opportunity to welcome Ashutosh back again. Ashutosh, we missed you most of the discussion. I believe you probably had some internet issues or something. But good to have you back towards the end. Yeah, so are there any other questions in the audience? Right. So let me summarize. First of all, again, Kaushik, Raj, Ashutosh, and also Apurv, they're not here right now, but it was really a pleasure having this discussion with you. I think we raised some very good points, and really thank you for that. That it was very eye-opening. A lot of things that we talked about. We started with talking about why data security has become so important. We talked about the vulnerabilities at every level, whether it's the cloud storage, the infrastructure, whether it's at the contractual levels, whether it's data theft, like Raj pointed out regarding IRCTC, or whether it's scraping simply on the front end of a website or an app, probably not an app. But the vulnerabilities are real. The threat is real. And even though it's new, we definitely need to go fast and make things better. Then we also talked about how we can protect ourselves as organizations, as individuals. Although the organizations have a lot of technology and governmental body regulations to guide them and to help them around on this particular aspect, it seems that the individuals have to have that kind of understanding and the ability to pick out where they would be most vulnerable. And towards the end, we actually discussed on how we can make sure that these individuals are more and more educated, how we can increase the awareness around this particular problem. I think some very good points raised in that area. We definitely have to design around security. We have to think of security first and then design the application around that. We can use media. We can have our family and friends who keep educating. We as individuals can keep spreading whatever is happening and whatever kind of vulnerabilities we are in for. Raj made a very, very interesting point about the most accessible kind of media, which is movies, to be to be able to show these kind of problems and how these things can be done, and the way people can actually protect themselves. So yeah, I mean, in summary, I think we do have a long way to go. Some steps have been taken. The government is giving us some guidelines and trying to enforce a few things. But it seems that as of now, a lot of responsibility lies on us technology folks to ensure that these vulnerabilities are minimized to a great extent. With that thought, I thank you everybody for joining in. And this was, again, like I said, a very, very eye-opening and engaging discussion. I really enjoyed my time here.
Yeah, same here, Tushar. Thanks for arranging this bar raiser, and thanks for hosting this, Tushar. Your questions are to the point and really engaging. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Raj and Apurv and Asutosh for being a panel. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks Tushar for hosting, and thanks Varraja for organizing this. This is really interesting and to get to view of others, right? So I learned lot of things which I'm not aware of from others. So thanks for organizing this. So we're looking forward for more topics like this.
Thank you all for joining in, and it was very much overwhelming having beautiful invites for non-tech savvy people like us, like me. And thank you all for joining. We are open to suggestions and feedback for the next round table, and I'll be circulating a form for the same. So please feel free to drop in your suggestions for next topic and how we can improvise on the current roundtable, how things can get better, how much more smoothly we can host it next time. We'll be sending an email likewise, and the same link will be on Discord as well. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tushar, Kaushik, Raj, and Apurva and Ashutosh are not here. Ashutosh, is he here?
Ashutosh is here, but yeah, no.
Yeah. So thank you, all of you. And we'll see you all in the next session again. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye. Have a
Bye.
great weekend.